Good morning. Just want to test my audio.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Jackie.
Good morning, just testing my audio.
Good morning.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Testing for the AV.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, good morning, everyone. It is currently 9 o'clock. We'll get started in about 2 to 3 minutes, just give an opportunity for others to join. Thank you. Okay, good morning. And welcome, and thank you for joining us for the State Water Resources Control Board's Water Quality Fee Stakeholder Meeting. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom and webcast, and is also being recorded. My name is David Ceccarelli, and I serve as the Fee and Revenue Branch Chief within the Division of Administrative Services. Today, we have several members of the Fee and Revenue Branch team working behind the scenes to help ensure the meeting runs smoothly. If you experience any technical difficulties at any point during the event, please don't hesitate to contact us at feebranch@waterboards.ca.gov. Joining me today from the Water Board's Fee and Revenue Branch to assist with the presentation are Cassandra White and Jackie Carter. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce John Russell, Deputy Director of Division Administrative Services, who will be offering some opening remarks shortly. Let me go over some meeting guidelines. For those joining via Zoom, please use the raise the hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or provide a comment. Staff will enable your microphone in the order hands are raised. If you are participating through the webcast, you can submit a question or comment by emailing us at the address displayed on the screen, again, which is the feebranch@waterboards.ca.gov. Please remember to refer to the handouts that were emailed to you prior to the meeting. If you did not receive them, don't worry. We'll be displaying the documents on the screen throughout the meeting. You can also request a copy afterwards or access the handouts on the Waterboard's fee webpage. To help the meeting run smoothly and stay on schedule, we ask that participants limit themselves to one question at a time. If you have a follow-up or a clarifying question related to your original inquiry, that's perfectly fine. Once your question has been fully addressed, we'll move on to the next person in the queue. If you have additional questions, you'll be re-entered into the queue in the order received. We value and respect all input. However, if the discussion begins to stray away from the primary purpose of this meeting, which is the focus on water quality fees, I may ask that we continue that conversation offline. This will allow us to coordinate with appropriate staff and ensure your concerns are properly addressed. At this moment, let's move to the agenda, and we will go over the agenda at this moment. So item number 2 has to do with the waste discharge permit fund budget cost drivers, which is attachment 1 as part of the handout. Item number 3 is the waste discharge permit fund program budget detail, which is attachment 2. Item number 4 is the WDPF fund condition, which is attachment 3. And then we'll discuss some future potential fee structure changes, specifically to water quality certification. And then we move into the open discussion portion of the meeting, and then next steps, which is leading us to the September 16th board meeting. Okay, at this moment, we'll move to the next item. And before we get to this item, I'm going to toss it to John Russell, who's going to, again, provide some opening remarks.
Thank you, David. First of all, thanks to all of you for being here today, spending a few minutes with us to discuss our proposed fee schedules. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate the input that we get at these meetings. The main thing I wanted to say is that David and Jackie and Cassandra will get into this in a lot more detail, but you'll notice that some of the proposed numbers have changed since our last meeting, since the May revise. The May revise included some of the governor's reductions, and then the final budget, the legislature put some of those reductions back into the budget. However, the approved budget is not the final budget as it would be in a normal year. The finance has notified us that there will be some further adjustments to the budget as they have some discussions with the legislature here in the fall. We don't know what those adjustments will be or where they will be, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that, we're working through this, but it's all happening well above our heads. We don't have any of the details on any of the discussions. So we don't have timing of when those adjustments will be made other than the fall time period or where they will be made or the amounts that they'll be made in. So just a heads up that, things are going to change again in the fall. But we're required by law to set our fees on whatever is in the approved budget, and that's what we've done. And David and Cassandra and Jackie will explain that in a lot more detail. With that, David, I'll flip it back to you.
All right, thanks, John. And at this moment, I will toss this to Jackie to go over the waste discharge permit fund budget cost drivers for 25-26.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. In the first table of the Waste Discharge Permit Fund budget cost drivers, it shows the fiscal year 24-25 fee setting budget of about 202 million, followed by the governor's enacted fee setting budget for fiscal year 25-26 is about 197 million, reflecting a net difference decrease of 4.9 million or 2.5%. In the second table, it shows the primary cost drivers of the net difference shown above. The first cost driver is state operations with a decrease of 3.7 million or 1.8%. The next cost driver is the only BCP for fiscal year 25-26, legal resources to respond to federal actions in the amount of 200,000 or 0.1%. The next cost driver is pro rata, which has a decrease of approximately 1.5 million or 0.7%. And that concludes our look at the water quality cost drivers. Overall, the fund has decreased by 4.9 million or 2.5%. And before we get into any questions, I'll hand it over to Cassandra to discuss the BCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, and good morning. Okay, so the BCP is for legal resources to respond to federal actions. The California Environmental Protection Agency, the California Air Resources Board, and the State Water Resources Control Board would receive 2.9 million from various special funds and 12 permanent positions in fiscal year 25-26 and ongoing to defend California's environmental laws and programs that advance the state's climate, water, public health, and overall environmental priorities in response to increased federal legal challenges. The Water Board's portion is $800,000 and 3 permanent positions. The Waste Discharge Permit Fund is one of 4 Water Board funds that $200,000 will be equally assessed to. And the other 2 fee funds are the Safe Drinking Water Account and the Water Rights Fund. And for more information on the BCP, you can refer to Department of Finance, and a direct link is in each of the handout today. And I will turn it back over to David.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Jackie. So just, again, high-level overview right now. Our enacted fee setting budget is approximately 197 million. Again, it's a decrease of roughly 4.9 million, which is roughly a reduction of 2.5%. Now, what I want to do is we're gonna pull up the budget cost drivers from the May revise, and this is painting a picture of what John mentioned earlier. So during the May revise, there were 2 control sections. One referred to as section 4.05, which is government efficiency reductions. Our share was 4.2 million. And then the other one was section 4.12, which was the vacancy savings and position elimination adjustment, which was 5.1 million. So those total roughly around $9.3 million. And so again, in the May revise, those adjustments were in that iteration of the budget. As we're looking right now, currently in the enacted budget, those 2 control sections are not in our enacted budget. And so it makes an adjustment of what our fee setting amount is. And so we're going off of the enacted budget, as John mentioned, that finance, there's a potential that these adjustments will take place in the fall, and or a portion of these reductions. There's somewhat of an unknown at this point. And so we'll kind of, as we move through the presentation, and I'll kind of open it up to questions here in a moment, that we can discuss. But again, as we go back, and if you scroll back up to where we stand in our current budget, as you can see here, again, those two control sections are not in here, which again results in our enacted budget at 197 million. So I'm gonna pause for a moment and open up to any questions if anyone has any questions regarding that. And I don't see any email questions. So we will go ahead and we will proceed with the next slide here. Which is our WDPA program budget detail. And so basically what this is doing, and we've had this discussion before, is we evaluate our projected fee setting budgets for each of our waste discharge permit programs, which is category A there. And our total budget is 196.8 million, roughly 197 million. We evaluate, we analyze all of our fee payers, what we're projecting to get into applications, based on our current fee structure. And we're anticipating to generate roughly $194.8 million. And so when you do a comparison, again, with the program's budgets, with our projected revenue forecast, what D is showing is the net difference. And so I'll give you an example here. The WDR program roughly needs about $1.2 million in revenue to meet its budgetary expenditures, which is roughly about a 2.6% increase in fees. And so as you go down the line there, land disposal is roughly 2.4 million. The water quality cert is 3.3. I'll get to stormwater here in a moment. NPDES wastewater is 2.7. Right now, the CAF, Ag, and Cannabis program are not anticipating to need any type of fee adjustments at this junction. As I move up to NPDES stormwater, what's happening there is that stormwater revenue is anticipated to exceed expenditures. This is mainly when what we're tracking right now is an uptick in stormwater construction revenue. The overall stormwater program, we generate revenue from our industrial permits. We generate revenue from our municipal permits. And of course, there's the stormwater construction sector also that we get revenue from. And we're definitely seeing an uptick in the number of applications. And we've seen this in times when there's a boom in the construction industry, and so we're starting to see that. What will be one of the options that we'll be discussing with the board members is to do a potentially one-time decrease to our stormwater construction fees, which would then kind of balance it out. The other option on the table is to keep it the way it is, just to ensure to see in the second year if we continue to see that uptick. There are many factors, with the economy that's going on. Things we're tracking with the tariffs and so forth. That we're because it's 1 year, and because last year we didn't see the number of applications revenue, so we're kind of in that uptick right now. So we'll kind of evaluate it. So we will have these discussions, and again, kind of on the table right now is one, whether we do a decrease in construction, like a one-time, which would then help balance the overall stormwater program, or if we kind of keep it the way it is and no increase, we can continue to generate the revenue and see how it plays out in the second year. Doing this for 15 years, I've seen where the stormwater program, the construction side of the stormwater program is not generating enough revenue because of, again, downturns in the economy and downturns in housing. And then there are multiple years where we start to see an uptick. So something that we are monitoring, and again, we want to bring to the table and let you guys know kind of what's going on there. But looking at this right now, we're basically about $2.1 million short of meeting our budgetary expenditures. And to do these increases between the range of 2.6% and 3.3%, it will, again, assist us in generating the revenue to cover our projected fee setting budget based on, again, the enacted budget here that was released on July 1. Any questions regarding this sheet here? Good morning, Noel. I think you have your hand up first.
Morning, David. Thanks for going over this for us. Can you walk through where the 4.5% decrease is showing up in this table? I mean, if the overall fund is, the budget is decreasing by 4.5%, the need, then it seems like I'm not seeing the proposed reductions matching up with what there should be in the fee, so in the overall budget. So if you can walk through that, it would be helpful.
So if we go back to the cost drivers, I think what you're referring to is well, you mentioned 4.5%.
Sorry, I wrote 4.5 when it was 2.5.
Yeah. So our compared to our budget expenditures of $201 million, it's gone down 2.5%. And so again, we have this budget of $196.8 million right now. If we scroll back to where we were just at, what we're tracking though is our revenues that are coming in are definitely shorter than that 197 million. So, when you again look at our permits, everything in the program side of things, several of our programs aren't generating enough money to kind of cover their cost. We're definitely, again, right now we're like CAF and ag and cannabis, those programs are balancing out. But program areas like WDR, the 401 cert, again, last year, we did a large fee increase. We knew that we were taking on additional workload, new applications. Those are taking time to come in. And so that's why we need a slight increase there to recover that cost. So it really comes down to a lot of the individual programs where we're just not generating enough revenue at this moment. And that's why we're looking at a need of doing these slight increases.
Okay, I have another question, but Bob can go and then I'll.
Okay. Bob, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do. Let me lower it though. We appreciate the projections, and the last thing anybody wants to do is hold you to them because stuff changes. But it would be good to know, for the sake of transparency, and this is not my only transparency request, we'll get to some more later, what happened. Because in the ILRP permit, there was a swing of nearly 6%. And there's some WDR is 2.3% from the projection. Now, again, the projection is what it was, but what occurred?
Well, Bob, exactly. That's a great question. Remember, looking at our cost drivers back in May, the May revise, we had our budget was $9 million less than what this was, right? And so there's where the swing is, right? When I painted the picture back in May, yes, most of these programs did not need an increase. They actually were, based on the budget, based on that $9 million reduction, we were looking at potentially giving a reduction to each of the programs. But because that $9 million is not in there, now when you look at the revenue levels, this is how it plays out basically. And as John mentioned, and if finance does this later in the fall, then we're going to have to do some evaluation of like what we're going to do. Meaning, if the numbers, if finance does these adjustments perhaps before the board meetings, we may have time to reevaluate and make some adjustments. If it takes place late in the fall, or sometime within the in the fiscal year, then we're going to have to then take those reductions and then look at our next year's fee setting process and take those into account.
Excuse me, David. So the fee increases, the changes in the fee levies, upward changes, are the result of adding back in program costs.
Actually, they're reductions, Bob, because can we go back? Let's go back and just kind of walk through again on those two slides there. So, Bob, so what we're painting here again, the control sections are not in the budget right now. And so if they were in this budget, that 9 million, that our fee setting budget would be about $187 million. And so based on that number, all of our programs the revenues would be exceeding their budgets. And so I would be coming up with a plan to figure out, okay, no increases, or actually maybe doing a one-time reduction to all of the water quality programs. But they're not in there currently right now. And we are obligated or authorized to set fees off of the Budget Act.
Right.
Right. And so if later in the fall, right, or before the stakeholder or before the board meeting, if the timing works, those numbers on finance do put those numbers back in, then we'll have to do an analysis and figure out, what the adjustment looks like. And again, in the May revise, you're right. When you looked at those numbers, all the programs were basically meeting revenue was exceeding their budgetary expenditures.
So for your edification, perhaps, and everyone else's, there will be some changes with some of the budget bills that are moving. No one knows, and we can't fault David or John or anybody at the water board how those are going to work out. Further complicating matters, so everyone is aware, the speaker has already indicated there could be a fall special session to reopen the budget. So building on what Rivas has said publicly, we're going to have fiscal chaos throughout the whole year, and we all have to deal with that for what that's worth. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Bob. Noel, good morning again.
Sorry. So I pulled, while Bob was talking, I pulled the June handout to look at the difference between the expected revenues from June and now. And they're mostly the same. So I'm seeing that like all this change is coming from the loss of those two cost reduction drivers that we talked about earlier. But there was some change. Can you talk a little bit about why, like you just have more permits that have been pulled, or like you just have a better idea because you're further into the fiscal year as to what the revenues are going to be? Or can you talk a little bit about what the shift in some of the revenues? I know they're pretty slight, but between the June handout and today's handout.
Well, a lot of it's based on, of course, revenue that takes place in 24-25. And so back in May, we have about 7 months of revenue data. And so now that we're into July, we have close to a full year of revenue data. And this is based on accounting reports. So the permits that are being paid, we also have updated application revenue that's coming in. And so, because application revenue is like a one-time thing, and then it becomes an invoice amount for the following year. We review active permits or permits that may being potentially terminated, evaluating what we refer to as NOTs, notice of termination. So potentially where the permits are terminated, which means the fee revenue doesn't come in. So it's an ongoing just evaluating the accounting reports. And it's basically kind of a timing thing. It takes our accounting office to get caught up, where the fiscal year ends June 30th, but our accounting office has not finalized the books. And so that's why, when you look at our fund condition for 24-25, it's still a projection at this point. We have discussions with, our regional boards on permits, on ag numbers, on how the calf program is doing, how dairy programs are doing. So all these conversations line up to how we're projecting on our fee revenues.
All right, thanks.
Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Sharon Green with the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. I've been listening to all the discussion, and I also wanted to thank Steph because we did meet separately last week and kind of got a little bit of this picture. So I guess the thing that I wanted to say is that I do feel like if, and it's a big if, we don't really know what the legislature is going to do, but if they do change the budget, the enacted budget between now and when they adjourn, I do feel like the water board should make adjustments to the fee regs and to the amounts that you change the fees, whether it's up or down. I guess it could go either way, but it sounds like it's possible they might add those control sections back in, and there'd be reductions. I don't know if that's the case, but if so, I do think the fee regs need to reflect that, and whether you guys do that as like a change sheet that's last minute to reflect the enacted budget, if it changes in a budget bill junior, or whether you delay a one board meeting or something in order to provide the time you need to catch up. Basically, I think that there needs to be a process in place. There could even be I don't know if you would do a quick stakeholder meeting in between. That might not fit in the time frame, but I do think there, maybe an email update to the stakeholder, listservs would be one other way to, provide the updated information to stakeholders. But I do think that needs to happen if there's a change. So that's kind of my main message. And I just want to also add, I mean, these are small percents, I get that, but it does add up. We pay a lot of fees because we have a lot of different permits, WDRs and NPDES for the most part. And this is probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for us in terms of like whether it's minus 2.5% or plus 2.5% on our fees. That could be a couple $100,000 easily across all our permits. So it's real money, and we have already adopted our budgets for the year. So, we don't have that ability to kind of change our budgets either. We have to deal with the fees. They are what they are, but I just wanted to point out, it is real money. It's not just a few dollars. So anyway, those are my comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, we are considering that. It's all going to be just based on the timing of when these changes occur. And we don't know when that'll be, other than we've been told the fall time period. So like David said earlier, if it does happen in August, we can certainly do what you suggested. If it's later than that, we'll need to figure out what we're going to do, basically. I can't really promise anything because we do have to bill. That's the we don't send out one big batch of bills for all of our programs all at once. We kind of bill throughout the fall and winter period. So at some point, we have to have a fee schedule ourselves just so we can collect the revenue. But we're definitely looking at the option that you described.
So at this time, I don't see any additional questions or anything online. Let's go ahead and move to the fund condition statement. So let me just start with, again, forecasting what 24-25 is looking like. Our program expenditures and our total revenue, for the most part, are balancing out. And although it's dry, it's resulting in a ending balance in our fund reserve of roughly about $22.9 million, which is 11.9% reserve. And staff, we do recognize that that is higher than normal. Normally, we do try to drive around the 5% reserve in this fund. A couple of things have happened over the years. Specifically in 2023, 24, there was one when we got these drills to do these control sections. Our organization definitely took a pause on hiring. And as a result, we definitely had some salary savings that was taking place. We needed to ensure that we had vacancies being held vacant, just to ensure that we had the money available, or the positions available if needed, when we put together the control sections to meet finance's request. Another thing that we definitely saw was that there was an uptick in what we've referred to as our state pooled money investment account. And so more interest on our account. So we started to see a little bit of uptick in revenue. And then, of course, measures were taken to hold our expenditures. But what I want to focus on is, so we've got two options here for 25-26. What fiscal year 25-26 column there, I guess it's the third column over from the left there. It's yes, the fiscal year 25-26 no fee changes forecast. What this is basically doing is, this would basically say, look, we're not going to propose any fee increases to any of the programs. So the budget detail sheet that basically pointed out that some programs would need between a 2.2 to a 3.3% increase. We would zero all those out. And basically what we would be doing here is we'd be using $4.9 million, or roughly $5 million of the reserve to offset our expenditures. And so what that basically does is drives the reserve down from 11.9 to 9%. And just to kind of keep in perspective, our starting, our ending reserve again of the 22.9 million, and I'm referred to as that as 23 million. 5 million of that is basically about 22%. So what if we don't do any increases, we're basically using 22% of the reserve, and that would offset the fee increases that, again, are based on the enacted budget that we know as of right now. What the final column there is basically reflecting is if, and what we're proposing is what another discussion that we'd be proposing as an option to the board is, if we did the fee increases and the fee adjustments, which again are ranging from 2.2 to the 3.3%, it generates the $197.9 million in revenue, and at the same time we're utilizing roughly about $2.8 million of the reserve. So we are, in both scenarios, are using some of the reserve and drawing the reserve down. 2.8 million of the reserve, that's roughly 23 million, is roughly about a 12% of the reserve that we would be utilizing. And of course, it draws it down to 10%. The problem that's taking place, and again, a question you may ask me is like, well, why don't we just drive it down to 5%? Well, as you can see, what happens is we're starting to now building a structural deficit, basically, and so the fund starts to get off balanced. And so I ran the numbers, and if you were to drive down to, a 5% reserve, it basically means that there's a structural deficit of roughly around $12 million. And at some point, you have to kind of start to balance it out and to start building in these fee increases to kind of capture that revenue to meet its budgetary expenditures. So again, to kind of recap, we've got two examples here and two options that we're looking at proposing to the board. One is no changes to the fee structure and utilizing about $5 million of the reserve to offset our revenue to meet budgetary expenditures. And then the second one is to do, again, some minimal increases in the range, again, 2 to 3%, and also using roughly 3 million of the reserve to balance our revenues with expenditures. So I'm going to open it up to questions at this time, and I believe, Bob, you're the first one with a question.
Thanks, David. And my apologies for being presumptuous. My name is Bob Gore. I'm from the Gualco Group. I represent the water utilities of the cities of Fresno, Long Beach, San Jose, Woodland, Antioch, Santa Cruz, plus Modesto Irrigation, Kings River entities, Kern County Water, Southeast Stanislaus County Water, Shafter Wasco Irrigation District, South Coast Water, SoCo Water District, and the California Wine Grape Growers. So now we all know. A couple things, David. Let's stay focused on what I regard as the minimum irreducible number here. If we expend 2% of the fund reserve, we wind up with no fee increase. Nice number. A likable number. Thank you for taking it to the board. As far as the structural reserve statement, the whole state is in that sinkhole. And that's an overall fiscal policy decision that's beyond this program and this stakeholder group. Although it is a worthy discussion and one we'll have to have. It's inevitable. One other comment about transparency. The total fee program expenditures in 2 fiscal years go up $24 million. It would be good to return to what we had in 2016. That is an additional handout that shows why our expenses went up 24 million. What are we buying here, guys? Using the term generically. And we have no idea. You're spending more of our money and you're not telling us on what other than program increases. Great. And I'm assuming, most of it's personnel costs, but it would be good to know, again, because we're paying for it. So thanks for listening.
So, Bob, I just want to address one thing, and we started this a couple years ago, and we do this at the beginning of the stakeholder process. So it was in the January handouts. But what we've done there is we provide a list of the BCPs, and it kind of lays out each of the years of what the augmentations are. And so you're right. I mean, when you look at 23, 24 is an actual expenditure. 24, 25 is projection. And of course we start getting into budgeted numbers, but when you start looking at the programs over the years, of course, there are budget change proposals For example, like last year was the big one for the FERC program. Excuse me, apologize for the water quality certification program. So that was a pretty big amount, and that augmented the total WDPF. But we can again, as we get into next year's fee cycle process for the stakeholder meetings, we're happy to kind of modify any documents and of course provide any transparency and if we need to kind of add it to each of the meetings, we can definitely help provide that. Or, maybe what'll be helpful is that we have it readily available. Let's put it that way, and we could pull that at any given time if these type of questions come up.
Thanks. We'll get back to some of those handouts then. I'll be glad to work with you. And as a parting comment, sorry, Noel, that BCP, like we testified to last time, there is no way, shape, or form on our backs. That should be general fund. And I'm disappointed the water board apparently never even asked the legislature to provide general fund for a general fund expenditure. And that's enough. Thanks.
Thank you. Noel, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, David. I want to, well, first, Bob reminded us all to introduce ourselves, which I forgot last time also. Noelle Kramers with Wine Institute. And I want to also express appreciation for putting forward both options with a no fee proposal to the board. Because, I mean, you expressed a recognition that we all were going to be a little bit confused as to why the goal had always been a 5% fund reserve and now we're targeting a 10% fund reserve. So it seems to me if we kept fees flat and had a 9% fund reserve, that we'd be in plenty good shape. I understand the overall concern around a structural deficit, but given, at least for my industry, the current economic situation, having flat fees would be greatly appreciated. And given that you still would have a 9% fund reserve, we see that would be completely appropriate. So I just want to kind of voice the concern around raising fees right now, particularly if that drives us to a 10% fund reserve, given that the goal is 5. So appreciate the information today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Yeah, I do want to clarify that our goal is a 5% fund reserve. We're just figuring out how to get there now from the 10% that's accumulated.
So I don't see any emails, excuse me, no questions to our emails. We will move to the next item on the agenda. Which are potential fee structure changes. And Cassandra, are you taking this one? I just want to confirm here.
Yes.
Okay. And it has to do with water quality certification. So Cassandra's going to give an update here.
Yes, just wanted to give an update, kind of recap that we met we had a water quality certification stakeholder meeting May 7th. We met with stakeholders, we went over the fee setting process and talked about the proposed methodology revision for categories A and E. And we received feedback. Based on that feedback, we decided to continue to work with program to flesh out the concept proposals, in addition to analyzing if there needs to be a routine maintenance project fees. And so these fees would go into effect in fiscal year 26-27. And so our next meeting will be scheduled sometime in the fall, in October or November. And just a reminder, if you are interested, please make sure you're signed up for our mailing list, fee regulations, water quality. And that was just an update on that. So I'll hand it back to you, David, unless there are any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Cassandra. Yeah, I just want to, of course, recap again. The discussions that are taking place, we're just trying to get out in front. This proposal that we're kind of working through with program and of course stakeholders. The item in the proposal would not be taken to the board until next September. And then I also just kind of want to key on that as of right now, no other structural changes, program changes to our fee structure are being considered at this time. Bob, you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's just a comment for Cassandra and for you, David and John. Could you issue, along with maybe Phil Crater, an agenda call or something for that fall fee holder discussion on water? It's a good opportunity to have to put some general items on the table that we don't have time to discuss at fee specific gatherings, if that's possible. Consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So again, no questions at this time. We will move to, again, item number 6, which is open discussion. So this gives an opportunity if anyone wants to ask any questions, anything that we didn't cover, anyone has any follow-up questions, we'll be happy to answer. And then, of course, we'll move on and talk about next steps. Ellen, I believe you have your hand up. Okay.
Yeah,
morning.
thanks, David. Ellen, we're here for the Water Foundation. I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on your comments about how the water quality certification revenues aren't coming in as expected. And if you have any updates on the implementation of the SACIT response. I'm particularly interested in whether you're going to use some of the new funding for legal responses to federal activities for that kind of general SACIT response. And I'm also interested in how the staffing for that program has shaped up, given your comments about putting pauses on hiring and things like that. So just a general kind of update, given that that was such a big change last year, would be helpful, I think, to understand if you have any comments on that.
So I hate to put her on the spot, but Annalisa, I was hoping maybe you can provide some update to the 401 CERT program within water quality.
I can provide minimal. It's not
Okay.
under my umbrella, but Annalisa Kihara, I'm the Assistant Deputy Director in the Division of Water Quality. I cover a lot of the groundwater programs. Phil Crater, our Deputy Director, could not attend today, so he apologizes. And so we can follow up with you, Ellen, with the appropriate staff. But I will say, generally speaking, I can't say I understand kind of the baseline in terms of the water quality cert fees and how it's not coming in as expected. I can speak for Division of Water Quality in terms of SACIT staffing, and that at least for the Division of Water Quality, and I'm unsure in terms of the updates for the regional boards and what resources they received. In the Division of Water Quality, we've recently been able to fill those vacancies. And they were somewhat affected in the fall during the pause. So there was like maybe a slight vacancy savings, but that's just one slice of the larger allocation of resources to the water boards as a whole. And so if you want to connect after the fee meeting, then what I could do is I could bring in Nicholas Martirano, who's my counterpart over the surface water programs, which also includes our 401 certification program.
Great. Yeah, I'll follow up. Thank you.
And again, just to add what kind of Annalisa said, and we've been working with program staff. Again, it was a big request and a big augmentation And so we were looking at evaluating kind of program numbers, again, based on applications and project sizes that were coming and so forth. And again, it's somewhat of a timing thing. We underestimated by a couple percentages, and that's why we're kind of in this position right now of potentially doing a 3.3% increase in 401 cert to kind of meet all those costs that were added in from last year. I think program staff kind of detailed that a little bit more into, of course, into the weeds of it. James Gardner, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. James Garner with Milk Producers Council here in California. A very specific question about dairy, and maybe we don't have this level of detail here on this call, but in terms of, I'm going back to the fees here on the CAF program, any specific or any idea about what would happen with dairy specifically? Because, there's more than dairy and CAF. Do we have that level of detail here, or is that something later to be worked out?
Well, we're based on the numbers that we're looking right now. Our confined animal feeding program, we understand has again, just not the dairies, but definitely we have other animal types and everything. So everything, all those permits that are within the confined animal feeding program generates the revenues. And so based on the revenue forecast of all the permits that are defined within our confined animal feeding program, this is that the revenues are meeting the expenditures. So at this time, we are not anticipating a fee increase in the CAF program.
So it would be applied. What I think you're saying, it would be applied across the entire, which that I understand, all of CAF, but whether you're poultry or bovine or dairy, everyone would see as it stands. Like just looking at attachment 2 right here, everyone would see a potential reduction.
Well, actually, what we're actually right now, what we would be seeing is pretty much the status quo. So the fee structure that was in place for 24-25, we would keep that in place. Roughly right now, this is an estimate that we're generating roughly about $37,000 in additional revenue, which isn't an amount that we would go and be making reductions. Again, it's an estimate because we haven't finalized the closed books for our accounting office, but the proposal would be all categories within CAF would not see a fee increase. And so the rates that are in place for 24-25 would continue.
Great. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Which then moves us into our next steps. So we're scheduled to take fee structure items to the board on September 16th for their consideration and adoption. Normal process is roughly an estimated 10 days prior to the 16th that the agenda items will become public. And then, of course, there's an opportunity to provide, public through the public comment period. Of course, there's an opportunity to, of course, attend the board and to provide comments at the board meeting. Prior to this, of course, is where internally we start to huddle up with our board members and we start to brief them on the comments that we receive from, of course, the stakeholders. We of course provide the updates and the kind of what we refer to as flagging items, which definitely kind of what's happening with the budget process and how that impacts our fees. Definitely one of the items is also the reserves and the amount of the reserves and what options are available to minimize and draw those reserves down. So definitely, some items on the table that we'll, be discussing with our board members, and then, of course, getting direction, of course, from executive management and board members on kind of what direction and what we as staff, present at the September 16th board meeting. So I'm gonna before and I'll get into this. I think John will mention it also. Again, we thank you for attending today's meeting. We thank you for your feedback. As you kind of start looking through the documentation, if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Cassandra or Jackie or John. And again, we'll be more than happy to meet with you guys. August is starting tomorrow, so things start to move pretty quickly. And we're committed and we'll continue to look, work with Department of Finance and to evaluate the budget process here in the next 6 weeks as we get into our adoption board meeting. With that said, John, I'll toss it to you to see if you have any other comments.
Not really. The only thing I did want to reiterate is what David previously said, that we do really appreciate your time being here. And if you have any questions on it, or anything at all related to fees, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. And as Sharon said previously, we had met offline with her group. And if you would like to do that too, we'd be more than happy to do that. I know a lot of the details are hard to convey in these group meetings. So if you want to talk in more detail on any of your programs, we'd be happy to do that. And then finally, I just wanted to say thank you for this year, for bearing with us through this sort of dynamic and, as Bob puts it, chaotic budget process. I've just said it's been weird, but it's been extremely volatile this year, more than normal, and it hasn't quite ended yet. But I just wanted to thank you all for your patience as we try to work through this.
Next year will be worse.
Thank you, John. Well, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at this time. Again, thank you for everyone's participation, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.